And for more on today's White House meeting, let's welcome Jason Kenney, a former Premier of Alberta and a former federal Conservative minister. Good to see you, Mr. Kenney.
Good to be here.
Now, we heard Conservatives in the House today repeatedly accuse the Prime Minister of failing when it comes to the Canada-U.S. relationship and dealing with the Trump administration. Do you think that's a fair assessment of what we've been seeing unfold in Washington?
Well, I don't think it's unfair given the Prime Minister's own commitments and standards. He said he was going to have a comprehensive deal with the United States within 90 days, and so far we have nothing. But Canada has given up on various tariffs. Canada's given President Trump what he demanded in terms of its defense expenditures, repealing the digital services tax. So it has been, on the Canadian side, all give, on the U.S. side, all take. That's not exactly the elbows up, aggressive, assertive approach that the Prime Minister ran on. Now, maybe he's come to conclude that that approach simply wasn't going to work at the present. But I think he should be forthcoming with Canadians about that.
We did hear Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc say this afternoon that the talks were more detailed than before, that the leaders want the conversation to continue, and he was using terms like successful and positive and substantial progress and momentum. What do you think Canadians should take from that?
Well, look, I like Minister LeBlanc very much, and I think he's a capable minister, but he's also a pretty good rhetorician. He's a good spinner, let's put it that way. And he, I don't see any progress. I don't see any momentum. But what I see is just a series of meetings of ministers treating the White House and those around it like it's some kind of an imperial court, going down to Washington every other week and having more meetings and agreeing to have more meetings. But we still have these crippling tariffs on Canadian lumber, on Canadian aluminum and Canadian steel, on auto parts and many other sectors of our economy. We have this huge threat to NAFTA, and we continue to have a president who, quote unquote, jokes about taking over Canadian sovereignty. So if that's how they define progress, I'd hate to see failing.
I do want to ask you, though, about those meetings and the impact of those meetings, because you know full well, given your political experience, the amount of meetings that can go back and forth between two governments. We've heard Pierre Poilievre as well criticize the stalled progress on a deal, talking about those working lunches between Canadian and American officials. Are these meetings important? You seem to be suggesting that perhaps they're not accomplishing what they're supposed to be.
Well, so far they're not accomplishing anything tangible. But I mean, I grant that there's no simple solution for Canada in this context, that we are dealing with a president who I don't think really has a coherent strategy on this, but rather it's improvisation. We do know that one of the things driving the president is his, I think, wrong-headed belief that these tariffs are going to result in a kind of reindustrialization of the American economy. And really all it's going to do is continue to add costs for American consumers. One of the things we can see in public opinion polling is that the president's approval rating around economic management, inflation, the cost of living has been on a pretty precipitous decline. He used to be in the high 50s on those issues in the first 2 or 3 months of his presidency, and he's now in the low 40s or the high 30s. So he's lost substantial support from Americans on those critical ballot box, kitchen table issues. And I think if this carries on into next year, if his tariffs that are, for example, MAGA voters drive F-150s, the cost of which is going to go up by about $7,000 US because of the tariffs on Canadian aluminum. They're built with aluminum chassis. When that hits MAGA voters, you're going to see more and more frustration. And if that carries into 2026, the midterm election year, I hope that the president will begin to reconsider the inflationary consequences of his protectionist policies. I think that's going to have a bigger impact on President Trump's policy direction than any number of meetings by Canadian officials.
Okay, and I want to finish now by asking you about Canadian public opinion, because we had the president today calling Mark Carney a world-class leader, a tough negotiator, saying he's not surprised that the Liberal leader won the last election. Do you think those words from Donald Trump help or hurt the Prime Minister here at home?
I can't imagine that they're going to turn into the Liberal Election Act, that's for sure. But it's not entirely new. We can recall the president effectively endorsed Prime Minister Carney in the last election, said he was his preferred choice for Prime Minister. So this is something that the Prime Minister is going to have to explain to Canadians. How has he won this tremendous admiration from the American president who has done more to attack Canada's economy than any in our modern history?
All right, Jason Kenney, really appreciate you making time for us tonight. Take care.
Thank you.